Hello, everybody, and welcome to Holistic Emails, Email and More, a Q&A with. I'm your host, Skip Federa, and today we're talking about, what every marketer wants to talk about, AI. But we actually planned to talk about AI. This isn't like a conference where everybody tries to shove AI into their presentation. Specifically, we're looking at using AI as a tool to help you with your email copywriting. Now, as this is your show, we bring you the experts, but it's your questions that drive the conversation. And I'm sure on this topic, you've got lots and lots of questions. So you're going to put those in to the Q&A panel on the left-hand, right-hand side of your screen. Now, we're doing this live. It is unscripted. It's unrehearsed. Today is going to be a lot of fun, and I'm sure you're going to get a lot of information out of it. But before we get to that, it would be rude to crack on if we did not thank our sponsors. So this year, our platinum sponsor is RPE Origin. RPE Origin's team of email experts has been obsessed with email marketing for nearly 20 years. From strategy to creative to execution to data analysis, they help companies increase their email ROI through a cross-vertical data-centric approach. And this year we have two silver sponsors. Our first silver sponsor is Sino. Our friends at Sino have built an amazing email analytics platform that will enable you to explore and benchmark your email marketing campaigns like never before. Their intuitive platform makes dealing with data feel like a friendly chat, not a complicated puzzle. Also, silver sponsor is Bouncer. Bouncer is an email verification and deliverability platform with super powerful tech and caring people behind it. Use Bouncer to increase your email marketing ROI and land smoothly in your recipient's inbox. Now, this is season 5 of Email More. Shockingly, I can't believe we've been going for 5 years. Seems like just yesterday we got started. If you're joining us for the first time or you want to go back to a favorite episode from the archive, then check out our website at www.holisticemailmarketing.com. Our producer, John, will put that in the chat. And click on the events menu. Obviously, don't do that now. In fact, don't worry about that. After we're done here, just get ChatGPT to go do that for you. It'll summarize the whole thing. You don't have to listen to any of it. It's fine. That's what AI is for. I want to get into it with our brilliant panel today. With us, we have Tony Allen, Senior Global CRM Manager at Pearson. We've got Tracy Olunga, Salesforce Marketing Cloud Administrator at Eurostar. And with me, as always, best-selling author and award-winning thought leader, Kath Pei of Holistic Email Marketing. Hey, everybody, how are you doing?
Good.
Excellent. Now, our time passes too quickly. So, folks, as I said, get your questions into that Q&A tab over there on the right-hand side of your screen. I suspect you all have a ton of questions, and I want to get to them as many as possible. So I'm going to skip my sort of setting the scene. And while you enter the Q&A tab, I'm going to ask the panel to set the scene with our first question. So, Tracy, we're going to start with you today. And could you just briefly share how you're currently using generative AI in your email marketing strategies?
So at the moment, the way we are using generative AI is to help with the creation of subject line and header. In addition to that, we also use predictive AI. So we combine both of them, and that helps us to have a good customer journey when it comes to reaching out our customers.
Fantastic. Tony, what about you? How are you using generative AI?
Yeah, so we're using it predominantly as a content creation tool. We're using a platform called Jasper. Lots of others sort of out there doing similar things, but I've used Jasper in a few different roles. And we're creating content predominantly across CRM, but also across web as well, both for B2B predominantly, but also D2C as well. We're also trialing it for translations. Being a global company, we've got tools and audiences across the world. So it's a time-saving tool as well, making sure we can get that translation done at the same time as almost in real time while we're writing the copy. So yeah, content generation and translation.
That's very cool. I have to say, I recently spent 3 weeks in Japan, and Google Translate is literally your best friend when you're in a country where you've got no chance of reading the character set. So helpful. Yes. Kath, obviously, Holistic Email Marketing works with loads of clients. How are you working with your clients with generative AI? What clients do you have doing interesting stuff?
Yeah, so we've done internally, actually, for our own newsletter and so on, we've tried subject line testing, but at the moment we're still winning. we have more know-how about emails specifically at the moment. But with the clients, what we do is we set up and train, we use ChatGPT, and we have trained our own, each client has its own instance, but I call them a persona, right? And we teach them persuasive design, persuasive copywriting. We teach it all about particularly writing for email and how it's different to writing for the web. We teach them about the 4 different personality types: the spontaneous, methodical, humanistic, and competitive. And then we teach them all about the brand, about the client, about the tone of voice, about everything like that. We do a lot of all of that teaching. And then, and this is obviously for the clients that are happy for us to do this. So we don't just do AI without letting them know we're doing AI copywriting. And then we'll write emails for them using that. There's a lot of prep, a lot of training, a lot of refining, continual refining as well. And then, of course, tons of editing.
Okay. And both for your subject line drafting and for your client drafting, do you then are you feeding the results back in so that the model's constantly getting better at what it does? Or is it you've just taught it the basics and it's here's an initial output, go from there?
Yeah, no, we're continually teaching it. So if it comes up with something that we deem to be, I've just written a blog about this, right? If it's deemed to be a current best practice, which just means it's a popular practice, I don't regard it as being a best practice. And in many cases, I regard it as being a bad practice, and it's called upon that, then we go back in and we say, don't do that. We add it to the list of practices that we don't want it to be calling upon. So it's continually, iteratively being updated and taught and learning.
Yeah, yep. It's almost like I got ready for this, like I prepared for this, Kath. I did read your blog on that. I thought it was really good. For those of you who are members of OI, or I'm not sure if non-members can get to it, but Kath wrote a blog for OI it's fascinating on that very topic. How to keep your AI from getting you fired is probably the best way to phrase it. Righty-ho. Tony, I want to go back to what you were talking about with what you're doing so far. Are there any specific tasks that you find, and maybe we'll turn this around, but are there any tasks that generative AI is really good at, most effective for, and why do you think that is? Or if you prefer, what have you tried and you're like, wow, that didn't work, and gone back to something a bit more traditional?
Yeah, I think a lot of it with AI is trial and error. I think you have to keep practicing it. It's a skill, isn't it? Being able to use it, knowing how to ask it for what you want. There's been a lot of failures that we've used it for, but also quite a few successes. For me, I think the best kind of utilization of Gen AI for me has been sort of short form content and short form copy. So things like subject lines, CTAs, anything that's sort of, within maximum sort of 2 or 3 lines is where you can get the punchiest outputs. We have used it in the past to do multiple split variant testing for things like subject lines, where it's just going to give you 10 or 15 different options within the space of a couple of seconds. Copywriters are absolutely amazing. They're worth their weight in gold, but bless them, it takes them a lot more time than it does for Gen AI to create the sort of a similar output. We've used it a lot of times with that sort of testing matrix to really ramp up the A/B testing or the ABC testing, whatever you want to call it, just to make sure that we've got that sort of bank of content in the background that we can always sort of call upon when we're running tests. We did it at Volvo. We had a bit of a content bank where we'd have loads of stuff just in our back pocket that we could use to create content for. And the team that we had at Volvo were key in that. So they were using Gen AI to write all of that copy so that when campaigns were needed, they were able to roll those out and draw that content straight from there. So yeah, for me, short form is definitely the ultimate best use case that I've come across for generative AI.
Okay. That's interesting. Yeah. Is that because generative AI does short form better? Or is that because you've got to edit it anyway and a longer form is just more editing?
I don't think it's that Gen AI does short form better. I think it's probably that I'm worse at asking for longer form content, and I think that's really important. And I always say that you have to practice the commands and you have to practice what you ask for. And for me, I think finding sort of punchy subject lines is a little bit quicker. You don't have to put in as much detail about what you're wanting. Obviously, the detail and the keywords you want to include are much shorter. It absolutely does work for long form content. We used it a little bit for some blogs at Pearson, and as I say, for sort of some longer form content at Volvo as well. And it definitely does work, but I think you have to be able to commit the time to really make your prompt as detailed as you can. As you said, you've still got the editing and the tweaking and that kind of thing as well, which obviously takes longer with longer form content. But I think for me, it's a skill set. My skill set for using it in my comfortable space was that sort of shorter form content.
Got it. Got it. We're gonna get to prompts in a second. But Tracy, what do you find it's most useful for, or what have you tried and you're like, oh no?
Yeah, I will definitely go and support on what Tony just said. I think a short form, so subject line, much easier, much punchy. And it's easier as well. When you don't have that copywriting skills and you don't know where to start, I think that's a good beginning, because what the ultimate goal is to drive open rate and then click-through rate. First place to start will be best to have it from the subject line or the pred. And yeah, as Tony said, and I will jump on prompt, is by being able to write something short and then amending it or liking or disliking what has been provided by the platform. It's always a quick win. You don't want to spend a lot of time on it. You just want something quick for you to utilize. And then when you do have that expertise, they can do the additional work that they need to do.
That's interesting. Let's get into the prompt question, because we've got a question from Christina, which is, what prompts have you found best to ask for subject lines or CTAs, which I think is probably too broad a question for us to answer without actually having some to hand. But let's flip that around a little bit. What prompt tips and tricks have you discovered for yourselves that work really well? Kath, you seem to be doing a lot with prompting and using prompts to retrain the model. So what are your little tips and tricks? What's in your tool bag that you use to make your prompts better?
We're still learning, obviously, but we do use it for lots of things, like the blog that's going to be written after this is going to be written by AI, right? So what we do is we give it the script, and then we will say, put out an outline. We need you to have a quote from each of the panelists, and so on. And then they go and give us the outline. Okay, give us more detail about sections 1 and 2, right? Fantastic. And then we say, okay, now go and write section 1, so on and so on. We break it down into step by step. And then that way we can always feed back. It's harder to feed back if it's this is where the problem comes with the long form. If you break it down and make it easy for them, we call him Chad, right? We've got lots of different personas, but our main one is Chad. And
is that any allusion to Mr. White?
If only, yeah, exactly. I'm asking the oracle of email marketing. No, he's got a long way to go before he gets up to Chad White's ranking. He's more of he needs a lot of hand holding. He's really good at the PA side of things about that. Okay, like I get him to write hypotheses all the time. I say, listen, I was writing this incredibly convoluted test that we're running for a client. Like it's super, super convoluted as far as the hypotheses go. And I gave him all the details. And then on the third time, he got it right. So I had to keep on refining it and everything. And then I've got this great hypothesis that it would have taken me hours to write because it was so convoluted. Yeah, we get them to write a whole bunch of different things. And it's always a lot of briefing. Even for subject lines, I'd be briefing the brand, briefing in the brand, assuming you are using your own proprietary instance, and you can do some of that pre-training with them, with the tone of voice, everything like that. Put in, you can even say, hey, listen, these subject lines have worked for us really well in the past, or whatever. Put in what the objective for the email is. I will always, even for a subject line test, I will always work with a hypothesis, because you want to know, particularly if you're going to be using AI, you can do amazing things with it and get lots of learnings from it. And then you'd be wanting to ask 10 subject lines. And if some of them aren't quite good, then you go, okay, I want another 5 more, but give them a little bit more. I don't like this numbers 2, 4, 9. Great. Okay. Give me another 3 more or something. And you can do it that way and just work with it. For me, it's just working. I just feel like I'm training a junior consultant, really, in so many ways. And you don't just say to a newbie, this is what I want you to do, and they go do the research and come back. You need to teach them. And so what we're doing is we're teaching We teach our personas, including Chad, on the holistic methodology, on everything that we do and how we do it and everything. Yeah. And that's why we've got a private instance, so that it won't teach everyone else.
You mentioned giving your persona a name. I was doing a presentation once and I had some stock image of just some random middle-aged white guy in a business suit. I can't even remember the point I was making, but that was the stock image I had in the slide anyway. And these three women were sitting in the front row and they started to giggle. And I was like, where did marketing get this picture? Did they just pull it off the web? Do they know who this person is? And it turned out it was one of their marketing personas. That was the picture they used for their marketing persona. They called him Chet. So Tony, Tracy, any prompt tips from either of you? Anything that you found that's quite useful?
A couple of things I think are really key for especially sort of subject lines and CTAs. I think Christine has called out in the Q&A. For subject lines especially, don't be afraid to ask for stuff that's sort of spam compliant and call that out specifically within your prompt. Ask for subject lines that are not inclusive of heavy sort of spam phraseology like free, exclamation marks, offer, all that kind of stuff, because they're only going to stitch you up further down the line if you have them all the time in your subject lines. Certainly for subject lines, prompt it and ask it for stuff that is spam compliant, and it's going to make sure it lands in the right inbox. For call to actions, I always have said things like outside of the norm, because I think everyone goes to click here, find out more, discover more, and they serve a purpose, they do a job, they're absolutely fine. But again, prompt for something that is out of the ordinary or that is similar to, but not exactly. And it just gives a little bit of variety to your emails, because 9 out of 10 emails you're going to get from a brand are going to have find out more or click here. So it's finding that call to action that just jumps out a little bit more and keeps and piques your interest. And with generative AI, it will do that for you. So as long as you ask it to do something like that, it's getting smarter and it's understanding all these sort of rules around spam and what's most engaging. So ask it for it. And it just saves you so much hassle down the line when your brand director comes and goes, how come we're using find out more 17 times this one? It just gives you that little bit of variation straight off the bat.
What we've gone and done is, because I've got umpteen dozen tests, hundreds of tests, which show that longer subject lines, more specific subject lines, give you a higher click-through, and the shorter, more generic ones give you a higher open rate. We've gone and fed that data in so that they understand that it's the case. And so we will say what our success metric is. And that's relevant for a subject line and everything like that. Our success metric here is conversions. We want them to buy the product. And so therefore it will go and give us more specific ones because of what we've trained. But of course, you could always do that test and say, give me 5 generic ones and 5 specific ones as well, if you're going to be doing an A/B split test and you wanted to test that out for yourself.
And in addition to that as well, I think it's, so for example, for us, what's worked well is anything kind of clickbait, making sure that we tell them what they're going to get when they open the email. And that's worked really well. So by being able to showcase, for example, our previous type of subject line and liking or disliking what the AI tool, so what Marketing Cloud is giving us, it generate additional subject line, and then you can use them to do the A/B testing. So if you use clickbait and this is the type of industry or service that you provide, and you know that this is working, go for clickbait type of subject line. Yeah, you can test as well long and short, but again, look at the tone of voice to make sure that it still respects and follow how your brand guideline, the way you've been communicating with your customer as well in the past. Because they want to make sure that it's not a machine that they're generating the subject line. And that's sometimes something that businesses forget. They're going to be like, okay, AI can generate that subject line and then it's fine. But then a customer on the other end will understand that this might have been generated by AI or this might have been generated by human.
I have to say, you all are doing some. Usually, I don't usually feel like, oh, I'm not keeping up on these sessions, but I feel like I'm not keeping up in these. So you guys are doing some pretty cool stuff in terms of retraining your models and with your prompt. My prompt tip is, it's going to sound lame now, but I end every prompt with, before you get started, is there any more information you need to be successful at this task? Most of the time, what is interesting is, as I get better at prompt writing, it asks me for more details less. That's a great way to check and see if your prompt is a good one. Now, Tracy, I want to pick up on your last comment because I think it's really important. How do you ensure that the AI aligns with your brand's voice and style? Is it just taking what the AI produces and then manually recrafting it, or do you train the AI what your brand voice and style is, and then make sure it fits, or how does that work for you all?
I would say it's a combination of both. So from what is generated straight away, you can tell your AI tool that you don't like that, and then they will generate more content. Then you can with the support of a copywriter, they can just extract all those different options that has been created and rewrite them or enhance the structure of what has been provided. So it's always best to keep that eye on. And also sometimes AI might not spot check spelling errors, for example. So you always need to make sure that you double check, make sure that you constantly work and test it, because maybe you don't want to send an email, but you just want to generate that extra data for it to be able to use it in the future when you will be ready to use that type of subject line. Yeah, preparing your prompt, preparing the data to be used in order to generate the prompt, and also getting someone to double check and enrich what platform is providing. That are the two best options.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've been caught out by spellings. So now what's in every one of my depends on which company I'm working for, but I always specify US English, UK English spellings, and idioms, which idioms work and which ones don't work. So that's interesting. Now, Tony, do you do anything different on making sure that it's the tone of voice and meeting the brand guidelines and that sort of thing?
Yeah, definitely. We've put in quite a lot of work. So as I say, the tool we're using is Jasper, and I'll cover up the Jasper badge. I promise you they're not paying me. But I think it's got quite a cool functionality called brand voice, and you can basically plug in your brand's voice into the platform, so you can teach it not only things like specific phraseology. You might use miles instead of kilometers, or whatever that brand style is. But you can also upload and import previous sort of content and copy from different channels or different sort of assets within your brand. And then the platform will then learn that and basically mimic those brand sort of voices and tones and phrases from existing copy. So we spend a lot of time before actually using the tool, setting it up and making sure we're building these brand voices. We've got B2B and D2C brand voices. But we've also got channel specific brand voices as well. So one for email, one for blogs, one for social, so that it's not, obviously a brand is a brand. Within that, you do have different conversational tones. And if it's a corporate audience versus a public or D2C audience, you're probably going to have a bit more conversational tone. Yeah, we build those each separately, and then you can just select those within Jasper. And every time you're creating content, you can choose what sort of tone of voice you want it to write. That being said, completely agree with Tracy in the sense that you have to be collaborative with sort of the brand or the copywriting team, because ultimately they are the stewards of your brand, aren't they? They're of your sort of tone and your tone of voice. Absolutely work in tandem with the brand team, with the copywriting team, and check. It's so important to make sure you're reading it and not just blindly copy and pasting what it gives you based on an output. But I think teaching the platform what your tone of voice is so important. And I always say invest the time in doing it. If you've got a platform, if you're using a tool that does allow you to do that, do spend the time. Don't just dive in and be like, let's just crack on and use it. Spend the time first getting it right, because you'll save so much more time in the long run having content that is specific. And if it's US or English, we had it at Volvo where we specifically told it to use boot rather than trunk, for a sort of a car analogy there. So little things like that, they just help you fuel instead of petrol, all that kind of stuff. It just saves you a bit of time down the line.
Yeah, exactly. And you talked about using it for translations as well. And I assume, setting up whatever and I apologize, I don't know off the top of my head what the Pearson tagline is. So I'll use a non-Pearson example. If you're Nike and your tagline is just do it, you're going to set up how to translate just do it in every language, so that A, the AI isn't wasting time doing that, and B, isn't getting it wrong and then you're having to correct it. I assume is the same approach.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly that. Things like that, key sort of taglines are really important to get right, because they're not direct translations. When it's slightly longer form content, it's a little bit easier to go into that translation rather than transcreation mindset. But I think, yeah, you're right. Translations are equally important to teach and learn. And we work really closely. The teams both at Pearson and previously the sort of the regional marketing teams are the language specialists. So we rely on them to help us build that brand voice. And we'll have a little sort of extra layer of QA on that when we are doing it outside of English, just to make sure it's right. But yeah, exactly that. As much as we can pre-program, we absolutely will.
Kath, we'll start with you on this one, because again, you work with a wide range of clients, but then Tony and Tracy, feel free to jump in. Can you give me some examples of how generative AI has really improved an email marketing campaign's performance?
That's all to do with the split testing. I said, we've done us versus it with subject lines and we're still winning. So that's not an improvement. But as far as working with clients and doing A/B split tests for them, and we're using the holistic testing methodology, so we're testing different types of motivations and everything. So we get it to write the subject line, we get it to write the copy, we get it to write, including all of so that it's going to be, maybe it's emotion versus curiosity. So it'll be emotionally based versus curiosity based. Subject line, copy, call to action. And it's just made our life so much easier. We go in, of course, we'll edit it and everything, but I really find that AI, you know what it's like to start with a blank page. It's so much easier to edit than to start. And as soon as it is that old thing, you know what you don't want, right? So even if, no, that's not what I want, you can then instruct it to actually refine it and give you a better result because you've got a starting point. So that's mainly where we're found with email, but we use it extensively outside of email, just within the consultancy itself, doing analytics and everything like that, but that's not what today is all about. So as far as copy goes, and within email, it's mainly for A/B split testing. Like I said, we do the hypotheses, we do everything like that, just following our own methodology and then reading the results and even asking it. I love asking Chad for his opinion on things. I really talk to him like he is a team member. So we have really good conversations.
Have you started talking to Chad, Kath? Or
What
are
do you
you
mean?
still just typing? Because now that with the new version of GPT-4o, it allows you to chat and also have video calls with it. You can always just take a picture of yourself. Hey, Chad, what do you think of my outfit?
The funny thing is that everyone gets confused when I show them a conversation. Okay, so this is the conversation I just had with Chad, and this is what we think that we're going to do, and blah, blah, blah. And they go, why is he calling you Katie? Because I said, listen, your name's Chad and my name's Katie. So everyone's going, why are you getting him to call you Katie?
Oh, this is gone to a very different place this is not what I expected, but in for a penny, in for a pound. Kath, have you and Chad been seeing each other outside of the office?
No, strictly office hours, and it's only, I think, better writing. So verbalizing my request to him is probably not going to be as clear as me actually writing a request. So I haven't used the talk function as such yet, because I'm just more visual that way.
Okay, so let's pull this back. Let's pull this back to something a bit more business related and not quite based on the movie Her. Tracy, Tony, what? I don't even remember the question now. Something about examples of how generative AI has improved your email marketing performance.
Yeah, I'm happy to go. I think for me, one example is the direct correlation between time and money. Generative AI saved us so much time at Volvo that we were able to turn things around so much faster. On a day-to-day, before using it, we were looking at a 2-week turnaround from briefing all the way through to deployment for a campaign. And time is money. We wanted to make sure we were doing things quicker and faster. So we had an in-house team who were absolutely amazing at creating everything, and we could create things immediately. So you're instantly asking it for content about X auto show, or can you summarize Top Gear's review about the latest Volvo car? And it's automatically doing that super quickly. And we're able to build and deploy them within 7 hours. We could do a sort of a campaign from start to finish. And it just meant, I don't want to put a KPI on a performance in terms of it achieved X amount of revenue or X amount of this, but I think the time saving was so much more valuable to us because it meant that we could focus on other things. We were able to implement control groups and all this kind of stuff, incremental revenue sort of studies, all based on the fact that we had more time that we could commit to these sort of more analytical sort of projects and jobs. So absolutely, it definitely improved the email marketing performance in the sense that we were able to massively upweight the volume of communication. We learned more off the back of that. And because of that, we were able to do things a little bit more cleverly. So it's a little bit of a roundabout example, but it does highlight the way it works.
That makes perfect sense. You basically were able to spend more time on the marketing and less time doing the marketing.
Exactly that. Exactly.
Yeah.
Tracy, what about you?
We said in addition to time saving, we said idea generation, because we are here to do A/B testing. We want to see everybody at some point will need to start and use AI. So if we need to say that AI is working, for example, Einstein within Marketing Cloud is the next tool to use. How can we have some ideas? How can we start to prep the platform to fully use it in the long term by itself? So yeah, it helps us to generate some ideas for subject line. Obviously, we will rewrite them for some of them. And also, it gave us some time as well to look at, okay, based on our next campaign, what type of subject line, what type of content we will match to that. And then Einstein will give us that answer.
Cool. That's I think the idea generation is quite an important one. Where I've seen it add a lot of value is, sure, I can come up with 2 versions of a subject line. You ask me to come up with 4, yeah, maybe, but they're probably variations on a theme. Whereas AI, give me 4 subject lines, make them all different, and you get 4 unique things, and it just happens. So it's like that. It speeds things up. Kath, I want to get to this question from Claire, and I can show this one on the stage for you. You've answered this, but I want to, just for point of clarification. So you've tested head-to-head AI versus non-AI subject lines.
So I did that, but I think her question actually, AI amended copy versus non-AI amended subject lines. So maybe I haven't understood it. I was thinking then it was just do it, spit it out, right? AI versus your then.
Oh yeah, okay. Let's go with that. Let's say AI spit it out and then a human made it better versus AI spit it out and you blindly put it in your email and hit send. Wow, that sounds scary. But yeah, let's go with that.
Okay, so I've never done either of those two. I've only tested our subject lines written by, we've got 2 copywriters in-house, and one that is awesome at call to actions, and the other one who's awesome at everything else. A subject line written by them versus an AI one. So that's the only one I've ever done.
But the AI ones are still amended. They're not raw AI.
Still amended. We amend always. Yeah. It's never. We're getting close, but certainly short, a lot closer than with long form. There still is a lot of editing to be done, but that's just giving us more food for thought for retraining and refining.
Okay, actually, that's an interesting segue to the next question. I want to, Tony, we'll start with you on this one, and that is, so what we've been talking about for the whole session so far is, yeah, AI is great at idea generation. It's great at short form copy. It's great at subject lines, calls to action, but it's the AI kicks it out and we have to massage it. We have to make it better. We have to make it sound like a machine didn't write it, that kind of thing. Are there any other challenges or limitations that you've encountered using generative AI for copywriting, and how have you addressed those, or what are you doing to address those?
Yeah, a couple of things. I think the key thing that stands out that would probably be a challenge, because I don't think it's a limitation in the sense that it's getting better, and it is certainly improving, but it is the tone of voice. And I think for me, that's always going to be where the human element slightly outweighs that of a generative AI. The sophistication of the sort of human linguistic skill, if you like, is so much greater than what you can teach a Gen AI platform, that it's sometimes difficult to replicate exactly what a copywriter or a master writer would write through AI. They're getting so much better. The tools are getting smarter and smarter literally every day. But as we've touched on quite a few times, every single output you do, you have to tweak it and you have to update it or you have to amend it. It's very rarely perfect. So I suppose the challenge is just consistency for one, and making sure that tone of voice is always nailed down. it's never going to replace a human in terms of copywriting, and it massively helps to reduce that workload and support the copywriting team or the brand team. So yeah, for me, biggest challenge is that consistent tone of voice and teaching it so it's learning enough to be able to create content that is bang on the money.
That's interesting. One of the brands that I work for, our tone of voice is plain spoken. So trying to remove big words, trying to remove jargon. So we write to a Flesch Kincaid score or grade of about 8. That's what we aim for, which means that you're taking out about the only big words you can ever include are buzzwords. And we try to eliminate buzzwords as well. And what we've found, or what I've found, is that at least GPT-4o, I don't know why I say that in that accent. I always do. GPT-4o doesn't have the ability to, you'll ask it, do you know what a Flesch Kincaid score is? Yes. Can you rewrite this to this score? Sure. It rewrites it. And then you plop it into a Flesch Kincaid measuring tool, and it comes out at some postgraduate level complexity. So that's an interesting point of that. That is one of the things that not only does it not do it well at this point, because of the way the model's been trained, and this is somewhat of an indictment against all marketers, and myself included, because everything we've ever posted on the internet is we try to make it sound way more complicated than it really needed to be. It only knows how to write complicated.
It's true.
Yeah.
I think, again, just to touch on an additional sort of challenge is the human element of it. So a challenge is writing good prompts and being a good AI user, because it genuinely is a skill. It's not a skill I've got particularly well. There are some people in my team who are brilliant at it, and they can write prompt classes, and it's so good. But I do think that the outputs from AI are limited by the user. And as much as you never like to point to user error, a lot of the time it is. If the outputs are continually falling short of what you want them to be, it's probably because you're not giving it a good enough prompt, or you haven't spent the time training yourself to be good at training the tool. It sounds ridiculous. Limitation is the human element and how you can use it most effectively. Write me 5 subject lines to sell a car. You're not going to get what you want, but you have to be good at using it. And it's that, do you want to put the effort into getting better, or are you very much just going for it will do what it needs to do rather than doing something great?
Yeah.
Well,
And just to, sorry,
go
Skip.
ahead, Tracy.
So
No, go ahead.
just to add, Kate said something at the beginning saying that AI is more like a junior consultant. And as a junior consultant, they need to understand what's the context of what we are promoting, of our strategy, what we are promoting, what we are trying to do as part of our strategy. And that human element, you only get it, that aspect, you only get it from the human element. So because that person will be able to have all that knowledge that the platform doesn't have, that person will need to feed that knowledge into the platform, into the way you write your prompt, into the way you ask them to create all those different, again, I'm sticking to subject line because we've just been able to do subject line. And then the more and more they feed it, the more and more they learn, the more and more they know that this is acceptable, or this is a good prompt, this is a good subject line or not. You cannot just rely fully on the tool. You will still need to have that person to be able to support the use of that tool.
So much of business communication is I can go into the office and I can say, a copywriter, 5 subject lines to sell this car, because the copywriter, because they work for Volvo, they've got all the context, right? They know all the tone of voice, and they know if I give them a model, they're going to know what the top 5 USPs are. And if I refine it a little bit with audience, they know how to structure all that. And I think for the prompt, you actually have to think about all those things. You have to articulate them. You have to get them down on, I was going to say on paper, but that would clearly never work. But you have to get them down and feed those into the model to get an output that's going to be useful. Tony and Tracy, you both have touched on something, and I'm going to throw you a curveball because this isn't in the questions that we prepped that I sent over to you. But let's pretend that a guest asked it, and so you have to answer it. Are you polite? Kath, this is for you too. Are you polite to Chad? Are you polite to your AI? Tracy, you said earlier, oh, and then we'll tell the AI which ones we don't like. But are you polite? Do you say please and thank you and all that sort of stuff?
Absolutely.
I always said in Marketing Cloud is just a thumbs up, a like or a dislike, and then you can rewrite it. But when I use it personally, I'm really polite. I'm making, please, can you tell me this? Please, can you check that? Please find me an article.
My politeness definitely gets, I always try my hardest to be polite. If I'm getting frustrated, if it's not giving me what I want, I'm just like, just rewrite it.
Yes.
Take out this word for the 7th time. And my politeness drops and drops. If it's 4 o'clock on a Friday, I'm definitely not polite to it because I just want it done. But I always try and be nice to it because I do feel like it has its own little personality. It's ridiculous, isn't it? You're talking to a computer. But I do try and be polite because in my head, I'm thinking if I'm nice to it, it's going to give me what I want. It's going to give a better output.
Well, at the end of the day, when Terminator becomes a documentary as opposed to a movie, and they're walking around killing people, they're going to be like, Tracy, Kath, you can live. You were nice to me. Tony, you know
I'm
what?
gone.
It's Friday afternoon, Tony. You weren't very nice to me on Friday afternoons.
I just turn out the door and run. Yeah. I'm done for.
I always greet him and I say, hi, Chad, if it's not picking up from an existing conversation. Or, hey, Chad, back again. I need to build on this, that kind of stuff, right? And so I'll just go, hi, Chad, and that's it. And he goes, hi, Katie, exclamation mark. And then we start the conversation. So it's just like he was a real person on my team.
Do you ask it about its weekend?
No, I don't.
I mean, occasionally I'll ask
Not yet,
Alexa.
but you're going to now.
Yeah.
She's going to be testing this weekend.
It's when Chad the AI has a better weekend than you did, and you're like, oh, okay, we won't ask you that again. That's no good.
I don't want to do that.
Kath, Chad hasn't changed other than helping you craft hypotheses. Chad hasn't changed your approach to testing at all, has it?
No, he helps me to streamline pretty much like what Tony was saying. So saving loads of time, which of course means it's a lot more effective cost-wise for the client. We can pass that cost on to the client. And yeah, it's just, I don't know what else to say. It works. So he hasn't, and that's because we're testing him against him. So we've only done the test in subject lines, us against him, but
Right.
we haven't done the body against. But I am setting up a test at the moment, and the control is the existing test, which was written by humans, versus a new one, which is going to be written by AI. The only difference is, though, is we are adding more persuasive elements, and those personality elements into it. So it's not going to be a strict AI versus human test. It still is control versus, which has written by a human, but got fewer persuasive elements within it versus that. So it still won't give us the result. We haven't done that direct test.
Yeah, it will. Now, we've got about 10 minutes left. So folks, if you have any last questions, now's the time to get them into that Q&A panel. I'm going to just quickly jump into something a little bit more philosophical, and then we'll end on some concrete practical tips for the audience. But from a philosophical standpoint, I was having a conversation with somebody who was talking about, once the AI gets a little bit better, it can do a lot of the stuff that we get junior people to do. And we've already talked about how AI is already a junior member of the team, and you have to teach it and tell it and instruct it on how to do stuff. And the more we do that, the better it will get. And we've talked about the cost savings or the time savings. And for Kath, that equates into cost savings for their clients. But one of the things that I think about is we are a panel of experts. And one of the things that makes us experts is that we have screwed things up a lot. Me, maybe more than others. I've made a lot of mistakes in my career, and I've learned from each of those mistakes. Subject lines that just didn't work, or tests that just didn't work, or we thought we were being clever and it turns out we weren't. And all of those things build up so that when I'm helping out a new junior member of the team, and they make a mistake, I can say, yep, I've made a similar mistake, or don't worry about it. This is what you need to learn from it. This is how you need to take away from it. So my concern is this: as we offload some of these junior activities to AI, who's going to replace us? Who's going to be that mentor in 10 or 15 years that's gone through the ranks, made the mistakes? This may not, I have not phrased this as a question very well, but what are your thoughts in terms of what's the balance of AI versus actual Like if the finance person came and said, hey, you're doing so much with AI, we can get rid of one of the members of your team. What's your response?
Definitely not.
Definitely.
Yeah,
not.
I just think I always think you just can't replace the human element. I know, Skip, you referred to the more junior level potentially being that one who might be replaced, but I completely disagree. Actually, I think a lot of the time, some of the best people I've worked with have been at that more junior level and have been completely owning the AI aspect of marketing. And sometimes they don't have, you don't need to be too bogged down in the detail, the strategy behind it to be able to get the best output from it. And I think I genuinely believe it. I'll be out the door in a couple of years' time because of it. But I genuinely think I don't think AI can replace the human element at a company. I think you need the humans to be able to teach it and to be able to use it properly. In some capacity, in some roles and jobs and industries, I'm sure there is a way to replace it. But I think in marketing, you have to have that human touch because that's what just lifts your kind of copywriting and content up to another level. It's a supporting tool as opposed to a replacement. I really do believe that.
When it comes to email marketing, I still believe that AI is still at the early stage. So there is a lot of things that will be developed in the next coming years. And then obviously, as things are changing, we also need to understand the trend with our customer, how to make sure that whatever AI is developing now will support the customer journey, will support our marketing strategy to make sure that this person that the business is planning to replace with AI will make sure that AI will fully cover that human. And at the moment, we're not here. And we are not even prepared for it, because if you leave AI just to build the email, we need to be prepared to see what will be the repercussion in terms of revenue, but in terms as well on the brand of the company.
Same as I don't believe that a strategist will be replaced either, a more senior role as well, because when you look at, and that's what this article is about, or refers to a bit about it, is there is so much false information out there on the web about email marketing that it will, if you ask it to create a strategy, it's going to give you bad advice, basically. And we have all different levels. And as Tony said, there are some amazing newcomers to the industry, and they've brought a past history with past experience. And a lot of the newcomers that are going to be, they're going to be same as texting was second nature to the younger ones compared to me. But doing commands is going to be second nature to them. Whereas we've had to learn it from the start, where they'll have been brought up on it. It's going to evolve, but I cannot see it ever getting to the point where we can just let it just go and do it.
I hope not. You know what? It's fine if we get to that point. 10 years, 15 years when I'm thinking about retiring, cool. That's great. Yeah, before that, no, we don't want that. We don't want that at all. Anthony asked this question, and Kath, I'm just going to throw this your way because I think it's a pretty quick answer. Anthony points out that ChatGPT, Gemini, Einstein are all quite American. Sorry. We do that. This is our version of colonialization. We're taking over the world through AI. But is it intelligent enough to respond and tailor content for non-Western cultures, older generations? Obviously, Tony's already talked about localization of content. Is it broad enough to cover the spectrum?
Yeah. I think with a lot of solid training, it will be okay. Again, to give out that first draft and for it to understand exactly what it is that you're wanting, I think so. But you have to do, as Tony was saying, you have to do a lot of training. Now, Jasper has got certain areas that it's easier to train with. It depends on what GPT you're using as to how easy they are to train. But we just keep on going in and editing and just say, oh, by the by, or we don't actually use that phrase, but we just add the information. If we find us talking in two and we know that the audience, we haven't briefed it well enough, then we do the training. And that's why we have individual personas. And that's why Tony's got multiple ones for different channels and everything, so that you can do all the hard work in the briefing, in the teaching of it, rather than having to do that in the prompt every single time, because that's incredibly time consuming and you might slip up and might forget something. Whereas every time you learn something, just quickly go in, edit it, and go in and teach it. I think it can. I haven't This probably Tony's got more experience in doing this. I haven't done it for any non-Western cultures, but I do it for English audiences rather than American audiences. And I do, of course, have to, and I haven't found it aside from some phraseology, but mainly just the spelling. It's not too bad.
Yeah, we're almost out of time, and I want to make sure we end up with some really practical tips. Tracy, I think we'll start with you. Give our audience is just getting started. What advice would you give them as they start to explore using generative AI for their email marketing? What's the one tip they can take away and start using this week?
Okay. I will say start. You need to start. Don't be afraid, and train. Train not only your team or the person who will be using that AI tool, but also train your AI tool. Train them to understand all the different contexts, where you're coming from, what type of customer you've got, what type of service or product you're selling. And then the more you practice, the more you train, the more you're testing, the better the platform will get. And also, the more you will get people within your team or even yourself being able to use more easily the tool.
Okay, I like that. Tony?
Embrace it. I think it's not going to go away, is it? So it's a tool that it scares people when they first dip their toe into it, but I think you have to embrace it. You have to know that it's going to be around and it is going to help. It's not going to replace us as marketers. Michael, I think as a copywriter, you're probably going to be safe. Embrace it and let it help you, but you have to make sure you spend the time practicing and getting how to use it, because if you don't, it's just not going to give you the value added. So I would just say definitely get on board with it. You haven't got to use it for everything. Just use it for small sort of little segments first and test it and practice it. But how you use it is what makes AI good or bad. So if you use it badly, you're going to get rubbish output. If you commit to being a good user, it will genuinely make your life easier. And we genuinely found that hands-on. Yeah, use it, embrace it, but practice.
Okay, I'm going to sneak one in before Kath goes. Mine would be patient. It's like trying to teach a 4-year-old to make a sandwich. You have to remember, go to the fridge, get the butter out. You have to remember all those steps. Kath, what's yours?
Mine is very similar to Tracy, but I would just add to that, play with it. Use it as a personal PA to begin with, just so that you get to know some of its capabilities and its ideas and how it works and how it can, and then build upon it and do what Skip does. We do the same thing. So we say, okay, here's the brief as such. Give me 10 questions that you need to know, some more information that you need from me. Practice, play, get to know its capabilities, its limitations, and as well as then once you've gone and done, that's when you'll start the briefing. You start to really get and do that.
That's a great point. The fundamental difference between a junior member of the team and generative AI is it actually does know what it doesn't know. Whereas a junior member of the team doesn't know what they don't know. So that they don't know what questions to ask. At least the generative AI has a good shot at knowing at least some of the questions to ask. So it can help you make your prompts better, make your briefs better. Thanks, everybody. That was great. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for today, which is unfortunate. But folks, let us know what you thought by adding some comments in the chat. We take on board everything that you say, and this is a conversation that definitely lends itself to input and comment and conversation and whatnot. Please join me in giving big thanks to our platinum sponsor, RPE Origin, and our silver sponsors, Sino and Bouncer. And of course, please join me in giving a big round of applause to our wonderful panel, Kath, Tony, and Tracy. Now, Kath and I will be back next month on the 18th of June, talking about gaining high ROI with marketing automation. Until then, can I just say, stay safe and make good choices. Thank you all for joining us today. We know you've got busy schedules. We've really enjoyed it. We hope you have as well. Thank you.